The wrench that unlocked everything. The blood on my hands wasn't from the rusted carburetor I'd been struggling with for the past hour. It was from the photograph I just discovered hidden inside my late husband's toolbox. A photograph of him embracing another woman, dated 3 weeks before the accident that killed him. My entire 22-year marriage had been a beautiful, carefully constructed lie. I stood frozen in the garage, my long silky hair sticking to the tears streaming down my cheeks, when I heard footsteps behind me. "Mrs. Mitchell? Sarah. I came to help with the..." Jake's voice stopped abruptly. My son's best friend since childhood, now 25 and freshly graduated, stood in the doorway with a wrench in his hand and concern flooding his striking blue eyes. "What happened? Are you okay?" The stakes couldn't have been clearer. At 45, I was about to lose everything I thought I knew about myself, my marriage, and the life I'd carefully built. The mystery of who Richard really was, and why he'd hidden this secret, would consume me if I let it. But in that moment, something even more dangerous sparked between Jake and me, something that would challenge every moral boundary I'd ever drawn. What I did next would either destroy my relationship with my son forever, or lead me somewhere I never expected to find at this stage of my life. "I'm fine," I lied, quickly shoving the photograph into my pocket. My voice cracked, betraying me completely. Jake set down the wrench and crossed the garage in 3 long strides. He didn't ask permission before gently taking my hands in his, examining the small cut on my palm from the photograph's sharp edge. "You're bleeding and you're clearly not fine. Talk to me." I pulled away, turning toward the 1969 Mustang that Richard had been restoring before his death 2 years ago. The car sat there like a metallic ghost, a reminder of all the questions I'd never thought to ask while he was alive. "It's nothing. Just old memories. You didn't have to come today. Tyler said you needed help finishing his dad's project." Jake moved beside me, his shoulder almost touching mine as he surveyed the engine. "He's worried about you, you know. Says you've been locked in this garage every weekend for months. My son Tyler was deployed overseas and couldn't be here himself. He'd asked Jake to check on me, never imagining what that simple favor would set in motion. The car was supposed to be finished by now," I said, wiping my eyes quickly. "Richard always said we'd drive it to the coast together when he retired. Now I just want to get it running so I can sell the damn thing and move on with my life." Jake studied me with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. He'd changed so much since his college years. His athletic build had matured, his jawline sharper, his humor still quick but now layered with a depth that came from his own struggles. He'd lost his mother to cancer last year, and something in his eyes told me he recognized grief when he saw it. "Moving on is overrated," he said softly. "Sometimes we have to move through." The wisdom in his words caught me off guard. This was Tyler's friend, the boy who used to raid my refrigerator and leave his sneakers in my hallway. When had he become someone who could see through my carefully maintained facade? "Hand me that socket wrench?" I asked, desperate to change the subject. He obliged, and we fell into an unexpected rhythm. Jake knew more about cars than I'd realized, and his patient guidance helped me understand the engine in ways Richard never had. Richard had always wanted to do everything himself, control everything, I now realized with bitter clarity. "So," Jake said, breaking the comfortable silence as he tightened a bolt, "want to tell me why you're really crying alone in a garage on a Saturday afternoon? And don't say old memories again. I may be young, but I'm not stupid." I laughed despite myself. Young and arrogant. That's a dangerous combination. I prefer young and observant. There's a difference. He flashed me that crooked smile that probably devastated women his own age. "Also, I've known you since I was 12. I can tell when you're hiding something." The photograph burned in my pocket. I'd kept Richard's secret for 2 years without knowing it existed. Now that I knew, who could I possibly tell? Not Tyler, not while he was serving overseas, not when his father was still his hero. Not my friends who would pity me or worse, admit they'd suspected all along. "If I tell you something," I said slowly, "you have to promise it stays between us. Not a word to Tyler." Jake's expression grew serious. "I promise." I pulled out the photograph and handed it to him. His face shifted through several emotions as he studied it. Confusion, understanding, then anger on my behalf. "This is dated 3 weeks before the accident." "I know." I took the photograph back, staring at the woman's face. She was younger than me, darker-haired, with a smile that suggested she knew exactly what she had. 22 years, Jake. I gave him 22 years, and apparently that wasn't enough. Have you identified who she is? Not yet, but there are more boxes in the attic. More secrets, probably. I tucked the photograph away again. I've been afraid to look. Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached out and squeezed my shoulder. His touch warmed through my thin shirt. Then we'll look together. You shouldn't have to face this alone. If this story is already pulling at your heartstrings, drop a comment below sharing your thoughts. And make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what happens next. The attic was dustier than I remembered and filled with boxes I'd been avoiding since the funeral. Jake climbed the ladder first, offering me a hand as I followed. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through me. Just static electricity, I told myself firmly. Where do we start? He asked, surveying the maze of cardboard and memories. The boxes marked office. Richard kept everything from his work in those. We work side by side, sorting through tax returns, old contracts, and business correspondence. Jake made occasional jokes to lighten the mood. His humor was sharp, sometimes cutting, but somehow exactly what I needed. Did your husband really keep every receipt from 1995? He held up a faded paper. I respect the dedication to documentation, but this is bordering on obsessive. Richard was meticulous about everything, I said. Or so I thought. Then I found the letter. It was handwritten, tucked into an envelope with no return address. The date was from 5 years ago, 5 years of my marriage that had apparently included someone else. My dearest Richard, I know you said we need to be careful, but I can't stand being apart from you. When you told me about Sarah, I understood why you stay, but it doesn't make the waiting any easier. Every moment with you is worth the secret. Forever yours, Diana. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes again. Not just an affair, a relationship. An ongoing deep connection that had existed parallel to my own marriage. Sarah. Jake's voice was gentle. He'd read over my shoulder. I'm so sorry. Diana, I whispered. Her name is Diana. And she loved him. She actually loved him. Somehow that made it worse. If it had been just physical, just a mistake, I could have understood. But love? Richard had been capable of loving 2 women at once, and I'd never known. Jake guided me to sit on an old trunk, keeping his hand on my back as I processed this new devastation. His presence was steady, anchoring me when I felt like I might float away on a tide of grief and betrayal. My mom had an affair once, Jake said quietly. When I was 17. Dad found out. They worked through it, but I remember watching my father try to reconcile the woman he loved with the woman who had hurt him. It nearly broke him. I looked up surprised. I'd known Jake's parents had struggled, but I'd never known the details. I'm sorry. That must have been terrible for you. It taught me that people are complicated, that love and betrayal can exist in the same heart, and that the people we think we know best are sometimes the ones hiding the most. His words echoed in the dusty attic air, heavy with meaning I wasn't ready to examine. We should keep looking, I said finally. There might be more. There was more. Financial records showing payments to an apartment I'd never known about. More letters from Diana spanning years. And finally, a safety deposit box key that Richard had never mentioned. By the time we climbed down from the attic, evening had fallen. My whole body ached, from the physical labor and from the emotional weight of discovery. I should go check that safety deposit box on Monday, I said, standing in the garage doorway. Find out what else he was hiding. I'll go with you, Jake offered immediately. If you want company. I should have said no. Should have maintained appropriate boundaries with my son's friend. But the truth was I didn't want to face any of this alone. And Jake was the only person who knew my secret. Okay. I agreed. Thank you. He smiled and something shifted in the space between us. Nothing inappropriate, not yet, but a recognition of something changing. Same time tomorrow? We should get back to the car too. Therapy through mechanics. I found myself smiling back. 9 o'clock. And bring coffee. You're too cheerful in the morning for someone who doesn't bring caffeine. Cheerful and charming, he corrected, walking backward toward his truck. That's the full package, Mrs. Mitchell. Call me Sarah. I said. Mrs. Mitchell was Richard's wife. I'm not sure who I am anymore. The intensity in his eyes as he nodded told me he understood exactly what I meant. The next few weeks became a strange rhythm. Jake came every Saturday and Sunday, helping me work on the Mustang while we pieced together the puzzle of Richard's double life. We went to the safety deposit box together and found more photographs, a second phone that Richard had kept hidden, and documents showing he'd been planning to leave me. Diana's phone number was in that phone. I stared at it for 3 days before finally calling. This is where everything changed. Stay with me because what happens next will completely transform this story. If you're invested in Sarah's journey, hit that like button and keep watching. Diana answered on the second ring. Her voice was soft, cultured. Nothing like what I'd imagined. Is this Sarah Mitchell? My breath caught. How did you know? I've been expecting your call for 2 years. Ever since Richard died. A pause. I think we should meet. We met at a coffee shop halfway between our homes. Diana was elegant, poised, and surprisingly kind. She was 52, older than me, not younger as I'd assumed. A widow herself when she'd met Richard at a business conference. I know you must hate me, she said, stirring her coffee without drinking it. I would hate me too. I'm trying to understand, I replied honestly. Help me understand. Diana's story complicated everything. She genuinely loved Richard. He'd told her his marriage was loveless, that I was cold and distant, lies I'd never given him reason to tell. He'd promised to leave me after Tyler graduated, then postponed. Then Tyler enlisted and Richard had more excuses. The accident happened the week he finally told me he wasn't leaving you, Diana said, tears in her eyes. He chose you, Sarah. Whatever else he did, in the end, he chose his family. I didn't know if that made me feel better or worse. He'd chosen me, but only after years of betraying me. He'd loved me enough to stay but not enough to be faithful. When I told Jake about the meeting that evening, we were sitting on the tailgate of his truck, the Mustang finally purring in the garage behind us after weeks of work. That had to be brutal, he said, passing me a beer. Facing the woman your husband loved. She wasn't what I expected. She wasn't a villain. I took a long drink. That almost makes it harder. I wanted someone to blame. Some things don't have villains. Just people making complicated choices for complicated reasons. Very philosophical for someone who once got his head stuck in a banister. Jake laughed, the sound warm in the evening air. I was 12. And Tyler dared me. Tyler dares you to do a lot of stupid things. He does. Jake's expression softened. He's also the reason I'm sitting here with you. So I can't complain. There it was again, that shift in the air between us. I was hyper-aware of how close we were sitting, of the warmth radiating from his body, of the way his eyes caught the garage light. Jake? I started, not even sure what I was going to say. I know, he said quietly. I know this is complicated. I know I'm Tyler's friend and you're his mother and there are about 100 reasons why. He stopped, ran a hand through his hair. But I also know that I've been looking forward to seeing you every weekend. That you're the smartest, most interesting person I've ever met. That watching you process your grief with such grace makes me wish I'd handled my own half as well. My heart was pounding. You're 25. I'm aware of my age. I'm 45. I have a son older than you. Tyler is 2 months younger than me actually. And I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just... He looked at me then. Really looked, and I saw something that terrified me. I'm just being honest. Because I think you've had enough people in your life who weren't. I didn't know what to say. My head knew this was inappropriate, dangerous, potentially devastating to my relationship with my son. But my heart was tired of being safe. Tired of being the woman Richard had apparently found so cold he'd needed warmth elsewhere. We should focus on the car, I said finally. Jake nodded, but I could see the disappointment he was trying to hide. Right. The car. We worked in silence for the rest of the evening, but everything felt different. The accidental touches, the shared glances, the way my stomach flipped when he laughed. I couldn't pretend I wasn't feeling something anymore. But I also couldn't act on it. Could I? 3 weeks later, the Mustang was finally complete. Jake turned the key and the engine roared to life. A perfect, healthy sound that felt like resurrection. We did it. I threw my arms around him without thinking, caught up in the triumph of the moment. Jake hugged me back, lifting me slightly off my feet. When he set me down, we were chest to chest, my hands on his shoulders, his hands on my waist. Time stopped. "Sarah," he breathed. I knew I should step back. Knew I should laugh it off, pretend the moment hadn't happened. Instead, I heard myself say the words that would change everything. "Do you want to kiss me?" The silence that followed lasted an eternity. "I know you need to see what happens next. This is the moment everything changes. Keep watching. And if you're feeling the tension, drop a comment below." Jake's hands tightened on my waist. I could see him warring with himself, the good man fighting against the pull between us. "More than anything," he said finally. "But not like this. Not when you've just discovered your husband's betrayal. Not when you might be using me to feel wanted. You deserve better than that." The rejection stung even though I knew he was right. I stepped back, embarrassed and relieved and disappointed all at once. "I'm sorry," I said. "That was inappropriate. I shouldn't have." "Don't apologize for telling the truth." Jake reached out, tucking a strand of my long hair behind my ear. The gesture was so tender it made my chest ache. "The timing is just wrong. That doesn't mean the feeling is." I didn't have words. Not yet. But for the first time in 2 years I had hope. "I think you should go," I managed. Jake nodded slowly. "Okay. But Sarah? I'm not going anywhere." "Not really. When you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'll be here." He left, and I sat in the garage beside the car we'd built together, crying for reasons I couldn't fully name. The next morning, everything exploded. My phone rang at 6 a.m. It was Tyler, calling from overseas on a rare satellite phone connection. "Mom." His voice was strained. "I need to tell you something." Jake called me. My blood ran cold. What did he say? He told me everything. About Dad's affair. About the woman named Diana. About the letters and the safety deposit box. Tyler paused. "He also told me about his feelings for you. And before you say anything, I want you to know, I'm not angry." I couldn't speak. Jake had called my son. Had told him everything, including the truth about us. "Mom, are you there?" "I'm here," I whispered. "Tyler, I'm so sorry." "Sorry for what?" "For finding out Dad wasn't perfect. I've known that since I was 16 and found the emails he forgot to delete." Tyler's voice cracked. "I should have told you, but I didn't want to hurt you. So we both kept secrets to protect each other, and look where that got us." I was crying again. "You knew." "I knew. And I hated him for it, even as I pretended to worship him. When he died, I felt guilty for being relieved that you'd never have to find out." He took a breath. "Jake's a good guy, Mom. One of the best I know. If there's something between you two, I'm not going to stand in the way." "Tyler, I have to go. Connection's failing." "But Mom, you deserve to be happy. Really actually happy. Don't let anyone, including yourself, tell you otherwise." The line went dead. I sat with the phone in my hand, staring at nothing, trying to process what had just happened. My son had known about his father's affair. Had carried that weight alone. And now he was giving me permission to pursue something with his best friend. Nothing made sense anymore. Or maybe everything finally did. I called Jake. "I know you talked to Tyler," I said when he answered. "I had to. I couldn't keep secrets from him, not about his father, and not about how I feel about you. If there's any chance of something real between us, it has to start with honesty." That's either the most mature thing I've ever heard or the craziest. Why can't it be both? I found myself laughing through my tears. "I don't know what I'm doing, Jake." "Neither do I. But I know what I feel. And I know that 2 months of watching you rebuild yourself from the wreckage of your marriage has been the most inspiring thing I've ever witnessed. You're not cold or distant or whatever lies Richard told himself to justify his choices. You're strong. And I think maybe part of that strength could include letting yourself be loved again." I didn't have words. Not yet. But for the first time in 2 years I had hope. "The Mustang is done," I said. "Richard and I were supposed to drive it to the coast." "Is that an invitation?" "I think it might be." The drive to the coast was 6 hours of conversation, laughter, and careful navigation of our new reality. We talked about everything: my marriage, his mother's death, Tyler's blessing, Our fears about what other people would think. The age gap doesn't bother you? I asked as we wound along the Pacific Coast Highway. I'm not naive. I know we'll face judgment. But honestly, I stopped caring what people think when I watched my mother die at 54 and realized life is too short to let strangers' opinions dictate your choices. I reached over and took his hand. It felt right, natural in a way that terrified me. We'll take this slow, I said. As slow as you need. When we reached the coast, we sat on the hood of the Mustang and watched the sun set over the water. Jake's arm was around me, and for the first time in longer than I could remember I felt peace. Richard was supposed to be here, I said softly. Are you sad he's not? I thought about it, really thought. No. I'm sad about what I thought we had. I'm sad for the woman I was, who believed in a beautiful lie. But I'm not sad that she's gone. She was living half a life. I don't want to do that anymore. Jake pulled me closer. So what do you want? I want to be honest. With myself, with you, with everyone. I want to stop being afraid of judgment or change or the unknown. I want to live the rest of my life fully, even if that means making unconventional choices. That sounds like a pretty good plan. I turned to face him, and this time I knew exactly what I was doing. Do you still want to kiss me? He smiled, that crooked, charming smile that I'd once thought was inappropriate to notice. More than ever. Then what are you waiting for? Our first kiss was soft, tentative, achingly sweet. It was everything Richard's kisses hadn't been for years. Present, intentional, full of meaning. When we finally pulled apart, Jake's forehead rested against mine. Whatever happens next, he said, I'm glad we took this chance. So am I. 2 weeks later, the rainstorm changed everything between us. We had planned to work on installing new leather seats in the Mustang. A finishing touch to make the car truly ours rather than a ghost of my old life. But the sky had other plans. Thunder cracked across the afternoon sky, and rain hammered against the garage roof like 1,000 impatient fingers. Well, Jake said, looking out at the sheets of water cascading down, guess we're stuck here for a while. I was acutely aware of how close the garage suddenly felt. The Mustang sat between us like a chaperone, but even its presence couldn't diminish the electricity in the air. I'll make coffee, I offered, turning toward the small kitchenette I'd set up in the corner for our long working weekends. Sarah. Jake's voice stopped me. We've been dancing around this for 2 weeks. The kiss on the coast, the phone calls every night. The way you look at me when you think I'm not watching. My heart hammered. I don't know what you're talking about. Liar. He said it with affection, moving closer. Beautiful liar. Lightning illuminated the garage, casting dramatic shadows across his face. In that moment he looked less like Tyler's friend and more like the man who had slowly, unexpectedly claimed my heart. I'm scared, I admitted. Of what this means. Of what people will say. Of getting hurt again. I know. He reached out, his fingers trailing down my arm until they intertwined with mine. I'm scared too. But I'm more scared of walking away and spending the rest of my life wondering what we could have been. The rain intensified, cocooning us in our own private world. Jake's free hand came up to cup my face, his thumb tracing the curve of my cheekbone with devastating tenderness. Tell me to stop, he whispered. And I will. Tell me this is too much, too fast, too complicated, and I'll step back. But if there's even a chance. I silenced him with a kiss. Not soft like our first one. This was hungry, urgent, 2 months of suppressed longing finally breaking free. His hands tangled in my long hair as he pulled me closer, and I grabbed fistfuls of his shirt like I was drowning and he was the only solid thing in the world. We stumbled backward until my back pressed against the cool metal of the Mustang. Jake's lips traced down my neck, and I gasped at the sensation, so different from anything I'd felt in years. Richard had stopped kissing me like this long before his death. I'd forgotten what it felt like to be wanted. You're shaking, Jake murmured against my skin. I'm not cold. He pulled back to look at me, his eyes dark with desire but also something deeper, concern, affection, respect. We don't have to rush this. I don't want to rush, I said honestly. But I also don't want to hold back anymore. I've spent 22 years being careful, being appropriate, being exactly what everyone expected. And where did that get me? A husband who lied and a life half lived. Jake kissed my forehead, my eyelids, the tip of my nose. Each press of his lips felt like a promise. Then we'll find our own pace, he said. Somewhere between careful and reckless. Somewhere that's just ours. The storm raged outside while we explored this new territory, learning the landscape of each other with patience and wonder. When the rain finally subsided hours later, I was curled in Jake's arms on the old couch I kept in the garage, feeling more alive than I had in decades. Thank you, I whispered. For what? For seeing me. Not Tyler's mother. Not Richard's widow. Just me. He pressed a kiss to my hair. Sarah, you're the easiest person to see. You shine so bright it's impossible to look anywhere else. The confrontation with Richard's brother came 3 weeks after the rainstorm. I should have known Thomas would find out. In a town this size, secrets had short lifespans. He showed up at my door on a Tuesday evening, red-faced and furious. I heard an interesting rumor, Thomas spat, pushing past me into the living room, about you and that boy who's been hanging around. His name is Jake and he's a man, not a boy. He's 25 years old. He was at Richard's funeral, for God's sake. Do you have any idea how this looks? I felt my own anger rising. Thomas had always been Richard's defender, his enabler. I'd never liked him, but I'd tolerated him for Tyler's sake. Actually, I don't care how it looks. Not anymore. Richard hasn't been dead 2 years and you're already. Richard was sleeping with another woman for 5 years before he died. The words burst out before I could stop them. He paid for her apartment. He told her he loved her. He made plans to leave me. Thomas's face went pale. That's not true. I have the letters, the photographs, the financial records. I stepped closer, years of suppressed fury finally finding its voice. So don't you dare come into my house and lecture me about propriety. Your brother betrayed me in every way possible. And I spent 2 years mourning a marriage that was already dead. Richard would never. Richard did. And I have proof. I pointed toward the door. Now get out of my house. And if you ever speak to me about what's appropriate again, I'll make sure everyone in this town knows exactly what kind of man your brother really was. Thomas left, but I knew the confrontation wouldn't end there. He would talk. People would judge. The whispering would intensify. When Jake arrived an hour later, I was sitting in the dark living room, wondering if I had the strength for what was coming. I heard, he said, sitting beside me and taking my hand. Thomas was at the bar, telling everyone you've lost your mind. Let him talk. Are you okay? I thought about it, really considered the question before answering. Actually, yes. For the first time in years, I'm okay. I turned to face him. I've been so worried about what people think, about preserving Richard's memory, about being the perfect widow. But why? Why should I protect the reputation of a man who didn't protect my heart? Jake squeezed my hand. You shouldn't. I'm done hiding. From Thomas, from the neighbors, from anyone who has an opinion about how I live my life. I leaned my head on his shoulder. I choose you. I choose us. And if the world doesn't like it, that's their problem, not mine. The most romantic moment came on a night I least expected it. It was an ordinary Wednesday 3 months after our first kiss. Jake had shown up with takeout and a movie just like he did twice a week now. We'd settled into a rhythm, comfortable, domestic, quietly revolutionary. Halfway through the film, I felt him shift beside me on the couch. When I looked over, he was staring at me instead of the screen. What? I asked, suddenly self-conscious. Do I have something on my face? Just beauty, he said so sincerely that I rolled my eyes. That's the cheesiest thing you've ever said. I mean it. He paused the movie and turned to face me fully. Sarah, I need to tell you something, and I need you to really hear it. My heart rate quickened. Okay. Jake took my hands in his. When I first started coming here, it was because Tyler asked me to check on you. I expected to find a grieving widow who needed help with a car. Instead, I found the most remarkable woman I've ever known. Jake, let me finish. He took a breath. You've been through something that would have broken most people. Your husband's death, then discovering his betrayal. It would have been so easy for you to become bitter, closed off, afraid to trust again. But instead you chose courage. You chose to feel everything, to process it honestly, to stay open to possibilities you never imagined. Tears were forming in my eyes. I didn't feel very courageous. That's what makes it real courage. Jake lifted my hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to my knuckles. I love you, Sarah. Not in spite of everything you've been through, but because of who you've become. I love your strength and your vulnerability. I love how you laugh at my stupid jokes and call me out when I'm being an idiot. I love that you trusted me with your secrets and let me be part of your healing. The tears were falling freely now. I love you too, I whispered. I didn't think I could, not after everything. But somehow you made it feel safe to try again. Jake cupped my face in his hands, wiping my tears with his thumbs. I have something for you. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. My breath caught. Before you panic, it's not a ring. Not yet. I know we're taking this slow. He opened the box to reveal a delicate silver key on a chain. It's a key to my apartment. I'm not asking you to move in or change anything. I just want you to know that wherever I am, you have a place. You have a home. You're not alone anymore. I held the key in my palm. Its weight symbolic of everything we were building together. Then I pulled him into a kiss that said what words couldn't: gratitude, love, hope, and the sweet promise of a future neither of us had planned but both of us wanted. When we finally broke apart, Jake rested his forehead against mine. So, he said, a hint of his usual humor returning, does this mean you'll actually use that key? Or will it just collect dust like that gym membership I gave you for your birthday? I laughed, a real full laugh that shook my whole body. I used the gym membership. You've gone twice. Twice is not zero. The bar you've set for yourself is impressively low. I kissed him again, softer this time. I'll use the key. I promise. Good. Because my apartment has better coffee than this place, and I'm tired of drinking whatever that brown liquid is you keep trying to pass off as espresso. That brown liquid is from an Italian brand. Italians would weep if they knew what you were doing to their reputation. I shoved him playfully, and he caught my hands, pulling me onto his lap. For a long moment we just looked at each other. Two people who had found something unexpected and precious in the wreckage of their lives. Thank you, I said. For what? For making me laugh. For making me feel. For showing me that it's not too late to start over. I traced the line of his jaw with my fingertips. I spent so many years being Richard's wife, then Richard's widow. I forgot what it felt like to just be Sarah. Jake pressed a kiss to my palm. Sarah is my favorite person to be with. Even when she burns dinner and forgets to return your calls and takes forever to text back? Especially then. He grinned. Your flaws make you interesting. Perfect is boring. Now I know you're lying. I never lie. Except about that gym membership. I definitely gave it to you hoping you'd never use it, so I could return it for store credit. I burst out laughing again, and he kissed the sound right off my lips. The journey that followed wasn't easy. There were awkward conversations with friends, raised eyebrows from strangers, and a difficult reunion with Tyler when he returned home 6 months later. But Tyler had meant what he said. He wanted his mother happy, and seeing Jake and me together, he found he couldn't object to a connection built on honesty when his father's marriage had been built on lies. Diana and I eventually became unexpected friends. She understood the complicated grief of loving Richard in a way no one else could. She also understood that healing sometimes means opening yourself to possibilities you never imagined. A year after that first kiss, I stood in the garage where it had all started, now transformed into an art studio, because I'd finally pursued the painting I'd abandoned when I married Richard. Jake came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. Happy anniversary, he murmured against my hair. It's not our anniversary yet. It's the anniversary of the day you asked if I wanted to kiss you. That's the day everything changed. I turned in his arms, looking up at the man who had helped me rebuild not just a car, but my entire sense of self. Best question I ever asked. Best answer I ever gave. Outside, the Mustang sat gleaming in the driveway. No longer a ghost of my old life but a symbol of transformation. We drove it regularly now, taking weekend trips up the coast, creating new memories to replace the old pain. The truth about Richard still hurts sometimes. But I'd learned that betrayal doesn't have to define you. It can refine you, burning away false beliefs about yourself and leaving only what's true. And what was true was this. At 46, I'd found a love I never expected. Not despite my age, but because of it. All my years of experience had taught me what I needed and what I deserved. Jake's youth brought energy and hope. Together, we were creating something neither of us could have built alone. To anyone watching this story wondering if it's too late for them, if they're too old for new beginnings, if unexpected love is worth the risk, I want you to know that the garage where I fell apart became the place where I put myself back together. The photograph that shattered my world led me to a truth that set me free. And the question I never should have asked turned out to be exactly the right question at exactly the right time. Life doesn't always give us the story we planned. Sometimes it gives us something better. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to start over. Hit that subscribe button for more stories of unexpected love and second chances. And leave a comment telling me about a time when your life took an unexpected turn for the better. Your story might inspire someone else to take their own leap of faith. Jake and I are planning our wedding for next spring. A small ceremony at the coast where we first kissed, with Tyler serving as best man. Diana is invited, as is any guest who wants to come. Because the best stories aren't about perfect people making perfect choices. They're about broken people choosing to be brave. About darkness leading to light. About asking the scary questions and being willing to live with the answers. Do you want to kiss me? Yes. 1,000 times yes. And that made all the difference.